Okay, where are you?
Please, I'm coming up the 5 freeway.
Okay.
Right now, we are okay, but you gotta tell the police to just back off. He's still alive, but he got a gun to his head.
Is everything else okay?
Everything right now is okay, officer. Everything is
It was the night of June 13, 1994, when a quiet neighborhood in Brentwood, Los Angeles, was shattered by a crime that would dominate headlines, reshape public trust in the justice system, and expose deep divides in American culture. On the blood-soaked walkway outside 875 South Bundy Drive, 2 lifeless bodies were found, one belonging to Nicole Brown Simpson, the ex-wife of former NFL superstar O.J. Simpson, and the other to a young man named Ron Goldman, a waiter who had simply come to return a pair of forgotten glasses. The brutality of the murders was staggering. Nicole had been stabbed repeatedly, her neck slashed so deeply it was nearly severed. Ron, too, was viciously attacked as though he'd tried to fight off the killer. The crime scene was chaotic, frenzied, a crime of passion and rage, not of calculation. By sunrise, the LAPD had begun piecing together the horrifying details, but all signs pointed in one direction. Orenthal James Simpson, a man who by most appearances had it all, fame, wealth, adoration, but as the public would soon learn, he also had a violent past that had long been hidden behind the glitz of Hollywood and the roar of football stadiums. O.J. Simpson was more than just a sports icon. He had become a cultural figure, an American success story. From humble beginnings in the housing projects of San Francisco, he rose to football greatness at USC, then to superstardom with the Buffalo Bills. His charisma translated into a second act in front of the camera, commercials, movies, TV appearances. For millions of Americans, he was the ultimate crossover success story, and for many in white America, he was one of the good ones, charming, non-threatening, apolitical, but behind the polished image, there were years of police reports, 911 calls, and allegations of domestic violence. Nicole had made it clear O.J. scared her. He had beaten her, controlled her. She had divorced him in 1992, and though the legal ties were severed, the emotional chains remained. Despite this history, the idea that O.J. Simpson, the Heisman Trophy winner, the smiling face of Hertz Car Rentals, could be involved in such a brutal double murder seemed unthinkable, at least at first. As detectives closed in, O.J.'s behavior began to shift. He seemed nervous, inconsistent. When questioned, his answers didn't add up. Blood evidence was found on a trail that seemed to stretch from the crime scene to his driveway. There were cuts on his fingers, a pair of bloody gloves, one at the crime scene, one behind his guest house, both stained with the DNA of Nicole, Ron, and O.J. himself. On June 17th, 5 days after the murders, the LAPD prepared to arrest Simpson, but when they arrived at his Brentwood home with a warrant, he was gone. What followed would become one of the most surreal and unforgettable events in live television history. A white Ford Bronco was spotted on the freeway, moving slowly. Inside was O.J. in the back seat, holding a gun to his own head. Driving was his friend, former teammate Al Cowlings. Police quickly realized what was happening, a suicide or a standoff, or both. As news cameras picked up the chase, America tuned in. Nearly 95 million people watched live as the Bronco crept down Interstate 405. Crowds gathered on overpasses, waving signs, cheering. It was as if the entire nation had paused to witness something they couldn't fully understand. A fallen hero running from the law, trying to escape the reality of what had happened. The chase lasted 2 hours. Eventually, the Bronco returned to O.J.'s home, where he was taken into custody without incident. Inside the vehicle, police found $8,750 in cash, a passport, a loaded .357 Magnum, a fake beard, and a suicide note. But Simpson hadn't taken his life. Well, he hadn't fled the country. Instead, he would go to trial, and the trial would captivate the world for the next 11 months. From the very beginning, the case had all the elements of high drama, celebrity violence race, police, misconduct, media, obsession, but no one could have predicted just how explosive it would become. Simpson's defense team, quickly dubbed the Dream Team, included some of the most high-profile and experienced attorneys in America: Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, Alan Dershowitz, and a little-known family friend named Robert Kardashian. The prosecution, led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, believed they had an open and shut case, relying on an overwhelming amount of forensic evidence. DNA linked O.J. to the crime scene, the gloves, the bloody socks in his bedroom. But this trial wasn't just about evidence. It became a trial about race, power, and perception. The defense defense focused much of their strategy on LAPD detective Mark Furman. The officer who had discovered one of the gloves on the surface Furman was a decorated officer, but the defense uncovered old tapes in which he used racial slurs, spoke about planting evidence, and displayed clear racist attitudes. Those tapes detonated like a bomb in the courtroom. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just about whether O.J. was guilty. It was about whether he had been framed by a corrupt and racist police department. In the post-Rodney King era of Los Angeles, the idea resonated deeply with many in the black community who had long seen law enforcement as brutal and unjust. Then came the gloves when prosecutors asked O.J. to try on the blood-soaked gloves found at the crime scene and behind his house. He struggled to get them on. They appeared too tight. The moment was awkward and controversial, and the defense capitalized on it.
Doesn't fit, you must acquit.
On October 3rd, 1995, after 9 months of testimony, 133 days in court, and over 1,100 pieces of evidence, the jury returned its verdict. It took them just 4 hours. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. The country erupted for some. It was a triumph, a long overdue reckoning with police corruption and racial injustice. For others, it was an outrage, a celebrity walking free despite the blood evidence, the motive, the history of abuse. The split with stark polls showed that the majority of black Americans believed the verdict was just. Most white Americans believed O.J. had gotten away with murder. In 1997, the families of the victims filed a civil suit against Simpson. That jury found him liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole and Ron and awarded $335 million in damages. O.J. was never criminally convicted, but the stain remained. Years later, O.J. would land back in court again, this time in Nevada, on charges of armed robbery and kidnapping. In 2008, he was sentenced to 33 years in prison and served 9 before being released on parole. He has never admitted guilt in the 1994 murders. The O.J. Simpson case remains a defining moment in American legal and cultural history. It exposed the ways race, fame, and media could collide in unpredictable, volatile ways. It turned a courtroom into a circus. It blurred the line between justice and entertainment. To this day, people still ask, did the jury get it right? Was it justice or a tragic miscarriage? One thing is certain, the story of O.J. Simpson is not just about a murder. It's about who we are as a society, what we value, what we believe, and how far we're willing to go to defend our truth. And even now, 3 decades later, it remains as shocking, divisive, and unforgettable as ever. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories that uncover the real people behind the headlines, the facts behind the mystery, and the truths hidden in plain sight. Thanks for watching.